Hello, I'm Tim Hallbaum. I'm the Director of Training at the NLP Institute of California. And today I'd like to welcome Robert Harrison. And Robert is both a co-trainer of mine at the NLP Institute of California and also the director of the Bay Area Hypnosis Center in the Bay Area. And so, Robert, I have some questions for you about hypnosis.
Sure. Ask away, Tim.
Okay. So, the first question is the most basic one, and that is, what is hypnosis and how does it work?
I think kind of a real simple definition of hypnosis is it's an altered state of consciousness where you're able to access a part of your mind that just seems out of reach for most people. So a lot of the behaviors that we do that are very repetitive and often kind of unconscious. And by unconscious, what I mean is it's out of your awareness. It's something you don't even realize you're doing it. When someone's biting their nails, for example, a lot of times they don't even realize they're doing it until they've chewed their nails down to nubs.
So you say we've got a lot of habit patterns of behavior and thinking that hypnosis can begin to work with.
Yes, exactly. Or, I remember when I was in college and I was doing creative writing, and I would pour myself a cup of coffee and smoke a cigarette while I was working. This is before I quit, obviously. And, I'd write for a while, and all of a sudden I'd look over and the ashtray would be full of cigarettes. And I'd be out of them. And I didn't even remember smoking that many. Or the whole pot of coffee would be gone, and I didn't remember having that many cups. And so this happens all the time. You're in front of the TV, and all of a sudden you're having a snack, and all of a sudden the bag's empty, and your stomach starts to hurt, and you don't even realize how it happened. So
we're doing things all the time, I guess, that we're not necessarily thinking about very consciously, which is some kind of rote behavior.
That's right. And so, neuroscience is really showing that a large amount of our reactions and responses are unconscious. They're out of our awareness. They're automatic and often hardwired in during those early imprint developmental stages of life. So some people believe, between 0 and 6. And then any kind of real impressionable, could be traumatic, could be even an ecstatic instance, can create a new habit pattern. And when you get caught up in that, it requires a different way of going about reaching that and working with it. And the unconscious mind does not learn the same as the conscious mind. The conscious mind, you can get one idea and it clicks and you run with it. The unconscious mind is going to need a lot of repetition, and it's going to need it in a really simple form. So there's a whole art to how to put together a suggestion. And then the hypnotic state is really a very relaxed, open, uncritical, receptive state of mind.
Well, if you're in an uncritical, receptive state of mind, does that mean the hypnotist might be controlling the other person, or?
No, not at all. So a great analogy would be, think of it like watching a movie. Now, we've all been to movies or been dragged to a show that we didn't want to go to, whether it was a play or a musical or whether it was actually a movie. And it's something you have no interest in and you don't want to participate in. You might be checking your phone, checking email, looking at your watch, when's it going to be done? But boy, when you get in front of a movie that you really want to see, right, the first thing you notice is all that chitter-chatter and worry and anxiety drifts away. And then pretty soon, if other people are around you and they start talking, they sound like one of those parents in a Peanuts cartoon. And then pretty soon, your attention is leaving you and getting drawn into the movie so much so that you may not even realize your leg's falling asleep, or you're thirsty or hungry or need to go to the bathroom. And pretty soon, if it's really, really good, if it's funny, you're laughing. If it's thrilling, you're holding on the edge of your seat. If it's emotional, you're getting teary-eyed. You're now responding to suggestion.
So this is like being really absorbed into some kind of an experience then.
Yeah, it requires you focusing your attention, using your imagination. It's cooperative. So I often will tell clients, think of hypnosis and doing hypnosis as a cooperative act. Think of me as the coach. You are the star athlete. I can help you run a better race, get there sooner, make it more enjoyable, but you got to participate. We're working together. And all of the hypnotic phenomena that we produce is you doing it.
So that's really interesting. So it really helps you get into a different kind of state of mind to be able to use more of your mind to get what you want. So I think that's leading to another question, which is, why would a coach use hypnosis in their practice? In other words, how will it improve their practice?
Well, this is a really interesting question. I'm glad you asked it, because there's a couple of ways. Number one, depending on the intervention. So I work as a coach and a hypnotist and a consultant, and there's a big difference, as you know, between a coach and a consultant. The main difference being the consultant is directly giving advice, whereas the coach is helping the person tap their own kind of inner resources and come up with their own answers. Uh-huh. But there are certain applications where it's faster and more effective to use hypnosis than to use traditional coaching or even consulting. And so quitting smoking, for example, would be one. Losing weight, reducing stress. These three happen to be also the bread and butter of a hypnosis practice. And when I first started out, I had all this NLP training, and I was really excited about NLP. And, I would go into these companies and I would talk about, what I could do. And I had this talk called, I think it was called How to Excel at Anything You Do. But throughout those talks, I would mention hypnosis briefly, because there's this, connection of Milton Erickson with neurolinguistic programming. And what I kept finding would happen over and over again, to my surprise, is people would come afterwards and they'd say, "Hey, you mentioned hypnosis." And I was like, "Yeah." And they go, "Can you help me quit smoking? Can you help me lose weight? Can you help me get over my fear of public speaking?" And so I realized, wow, this is what people really want. And even though there's a lot of sensational ideas about what hypnosis is, everyone's heard of it. And everyone's kind of intrigued by it, And so that gets people thinking. They wake up and they're in the pain of their problem. They wake up and they go, they're coughing up a lung and they're like, "Oh my God, I got to quit smoking." And so I found people could really relate to that, and they could relate to certain things that hypnosis was known and has kind of a reputation for being able to help people resolve. And that's one of the main reasons to add it to your practice, because it's still helping people. It's still making a positive difference. It's still generative in the sense that when you change something with hypnosis versus with a pill, it really makes you go, wow, if I can do that with my mind, what else can I do? And I'm a big believer in, as long as it's natural and generative, which is kind of like my requirement, I believe in using the tool that's going to get the job done the fastest, the most effectively, the most productively, in a useful way, that doesn't have any kind of negative side effects. And so with certain things, hypnosis just gets the job done a lot faster.
Okay, so if I understand what you're saying correctly, the average guy on the street isn't going to necessarily know about different specific processes in a field like NLP, but they'll know they want to stop something. They've heard of hypnosis, so that might be an avenue for them to get some kind of help.
Yeah, and they realize, even though the average Joe may not understand, the technical aspect of something like hypnosis or neurolinguistic programming, what they do understand is, and they know that, hey, this isn't a problem of I don't know what to eat. For example, with weight loss, everyone knows how to lose weight, but it's how to get myself to do those things I can't seem to get myself to do. So they recognize there's something going on in the mind, and it's out of their reach, and they're not sure how to connect with it.
Excellent.
And so it's a really powerful tool to add to your toolbox, whether you're a coach or a consultant. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay.
So, Tim, the average person is really kind of, in the pain of their own problem. And so people tend to seek help based on their own unique pain that they're suffering from right at the moment. So, for example, they're not necessarily concerned with how they're going to get it done. They just know they want relief. And a lot of people will come to see us for hypnosis that have tried other things, medical model type solutions, what have you, and not gotten the result or not gotten the result yet for whatever reason. They understand that there's something going on in the mind. They know what to do, but they can't seem to get themselves to do it. And so one of the things we recognized was that, people really relate to the pain of their problem. And that is really, what we talk about in terms of meeting people in their map of the world. And so, yeah. And so they're somewhat familiar with hypnosis, so that will pique their interest enough to pick up the phone and call sometimes, and then they come in and realize we're not swinging a watch, I'm not wearing a velvet vest or anything like that. Mm-hmm. We actually work with a lot of doctors and get a lot of referrals from doctors. I think we have over 100 referring physicians in the Bay Area here.
Wow.
That refer to the Bay Area Hypnosis Center on a regular basis because, the results speak for themselves. And it's a great option among many other options, and I think each person needs to find what works for them.
So can somebody that attends your training be able to really use this to improve their own life as well?
Absolutely. One of the benefits of practicing hypnosis is, I feel like I'm benefiting from every session that I do, and the staff often report the same thing. But learning self-hypnosis is kind of an extension of learning hypnosis. Once you know how to hypnotize somebody else, you really do have everything you need to know to hypnotize yourself. And we talk about that. And there's also a lot of emphasis. When I'm teaching, there's a lot of emphasis on what needs to happen in hypnosis. Because helping someone get in and out of that kind of open, receptive state is one thing. But then what to do when you're in that state is a whole nother ball of wax, as you know.
Uh-huh. Well, so in a moment I want to ask you how your training might be different than other hypnosis certification trainings, but let me ask you this. How would hypnosis fit into a person's coaching practice? You indicated some ways that they might be able to use it, but how does it fit in? Because coaching, people that go to coaching may not necessarily think about getting hypnosis as a part of that.
Yeah, I'll give you a perfect example. So I got a call from a college baseball coach, and they were looking for sports coaching. His pitcher, who was a freshman pitcher, he was a rock star in high school. This guy throws sidearms. He was throwing about an 80-mile-an-hour sidearm in high school, which is really, really fast, and really, really, he was a really accurate pitcher. But when he suddenly went into the college realm, it was a whole other ball of wax. And when the coach called me, he had, pitched a game and hit 3 people in a row and was really having a confidence issue. So he came in for coaching on the mental side of the game. And one of the tools we used as part of that is hypnosis. So a lot of times I'll combine coaching and hypnosis. And so I will use coaching to teach various, to develop a routine, for example. We always develop a 3-step routine for our athletes. And then I will coach them on the basic NLP map and help them understand how they are responding to the world, how they are in charge of that, how they create this map and they compare this map to other maps in their mind. And that gives them a lot of choice and a lot of power. And then that also allows them to develop the belief that just because I feel a certain way about something doesn't mean it's true. But at that point, you still have this kind of habit that's been formed, this unconscious pattern and this reaction. And so with this guy, every time he got up to the mound after hitting 3 people, he imagined everyone in the stands laughing at him. He imagined, hitting another person, letting the team down. And so he was kind of stuck in that pattern of thinking. And so at that point, once he understood it, he saw the pattern, we were able to use hypnosis to redirect that behavior and to really make it not only feel natural, but actually become automatic much more quickly than we would have been able to do without using the hypnosis. So
just by using the conscious mind kind of coaching questions that you'd ask.
That's right. So I like to combine the two. And when we understand the pattern, I use this term called thought pattern identification. When we've identified the pattern and make them conscious, sometimes that in and of itself is enough to resolve it. But sometimes what we need to do is we need to then add hypnosis to that to really help redirect the wiring, so to speak, redirect the pattern of behavior. And it helps it happen more quickly, and it helps it really lock in a nice way.
It gives you a whole other set of tools for helping persons repattern their behavior in a way that to get with more of what they want then.
Absolutely. And then, of course, the other way we could use that is sometimes it's so far out of the conscious mind that they really don't have access to it. And so often what we'll do is, we'll do coaching as much as we can with the stuff we're aware of, but then we can use something like hypnosis to talk directly to their unconscious mind. So, for example, I might set up finger signals and talk directly to the part of them that's in charge of that behavior without having to go into any kind of real content or detail. And so it's another tool. It's a powerful tool. It often will accelerate the learning process and accelerate the setting up kind of inoculation of the new habit pattern that we want them to do instead. And it allows them to kind of mentally rehearse that at a pretty profound and deep level. So that becomes their new default.
So will people attending the training learn that particular kind of process?
Yes, they're going to learn that. The other thing they're going to learn is, the trainings, the way that I teach is really designed to give you from start to finish, here's what you really need to know to do this professionally in a professional setting. And a huge part of that is how to set up the session, how to run the session, how to do what's called ratify the session at the end so that the client really knows they were in hypnosis, which is important to help them really solidify the change, but also so that when they go home and they talk to the other people that know them, we don't want them to say, I felt kind of relaxed, because then everyone's going to wonder, did it really work or not? And then that can start to plant that seed of doubt. I want them to go home after a session and go, my God, my arm was stuck to the chair. I couldn't lift it. My eyes were stuck shut. I tried to count down from 100, and by the time I got to 95, the numbers were gone. And this is really good for building confidence that they're entering the hypnotic state and getting the change. So there's a whole art to how to do these sessions from start to finish, and then which tools to use. And what I like to focus on teaching is here's the stuff that I use day in, day out. In our long days, we may see as many as 24 people in a day. I try not to do that these days, but it can be done. We have 3 treatment rooms. Today, we had 3 people here at once, me and another hypnotist, and we're going back and forth room to room. So there's an art on how to really do that in a way where it keeps people engaged. It produces profound results. You're able to do it in a reasonable amount of time, or what you would call a session length.
Well, it sounds like this is something you can really use to help clients while making a good living then.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it fits in so perfectly with coaching. It's a great tool to use to really help people get where they want to go. And we use it, the big ones are smoking, weight loss, stress, which could include anything from a panic attack to fear of public speaking, to nail biting, to a tic, to anything like that. And then sports. Sports is another one. We've worked with a number of high school students. I got another one coming in later on this evening. And these kids go on to get scholarships at UCLA, Stanford, Arkansas State, which is a big golf school. We had a golfer go pro, and using, hypnosis. And of course, with the golfer, a lot of these athletes, I teach them self-hypnosis because they might be in Florida at a tournament, 10 minutes before the tournament on a Sunday morning, and I don't work then. And I'm certainly not in Florida, so I need to teach them how to get themselves into that optimal, receptive, open state where they can really access their kind of internal resources and bring out the best.
Okay, well, I have one more question. I know you've got an upcoming hypnosis certification training. How might that be different than another training? I know there are a number of different people that offer trainings in California. How might yours be different?
Well, there's 2 main differences. So the one difference that I mentioned, which is we really focus on here's the practical stuff that you're going to use in your coaching practice or in your, hypnosis practice, whether it's exclusive to hypnosis or you combine coaching. I always recommend you do both. But it's really like here's the practical, road-tested stuff you're going to use day in, day out, over and over and over again, and how to make that work in a reasonable amount of time and get good, dramatic results. So that's one way. The second way is that we have a 3-tier approach here that is, I believe, very unique. And so whenever we're working with the client, and this is something that, of course, we teach in the training, because we don't work with each person the same. What I do with one person, I might have to literally do the exact opposite with another person to get the same results. So I'll tell you a little bit about what I mean with that. There's 3 layers. So the first layer, what are the actual habits and behaviors that you are here to change? And I recommend only doing hypnosis and coaching with clear, measurable objectives. In other words, we have clear metrics. There's no funny business about did we get the change or not. You either smoke or you don't. You either lose weight or you don't. You either stop biting your nails or you don't. You either throw more strikes or you don't, for example. So there's the habits and behaviors are here to change. Now, the second layer that is really important to focus on is stress and pressure. Stress and pressure is the number one thing that will knock a person off course or cause them to do what we call the derail and bail. Mm-hmm. And so in a real behavioral change program, it's incredibly important to learn the art of keeping the person engaged. So there's a lot of focus on that. Big difference between being a coach hypnotist in my book and being a therapist. And, realize my sister is a therapist, her husband is a therapist. I love therapy, but it's just different. With coaching, as a coach and a hypnotist, we are focused on a specific result, a specific outcome, and we're very results focused. And so it's a challenge when you're doing this kind of work to keep a person engaged. So the third tier is what we call the personality profile. And we have a real simple way of teaching that. And with each one of these kind of different personality types, there's what we call key attractors and key stressors. And so we train hypnotists how to track on those 3 levels. Because when they go into stress and pressure, or what Virginia Satir would call a coping mechanism for stress, then they can't hear anything. They can't learn anything. You've lost them in that moment. So you need to be able to really know when they're receptive and open and when they shut down. You need to be able to see that. And then if you know a little bit about their personality and what those attractors are, that lets you know these are the things this person will chase. So to give you an example, a freedom-based person, freedom people, they want to do what they want to do when they want to do it. They don't want to be told otherwise. It's all about options, options, options. So anything that sounds restrictive or controlling or like you're telling them what to do is instantly going to be a deal breaker for them. They're going to get tight. They're going to rebel. They're going to sabotage. Well, but on the other hand, someone who's very rules or security-based, they want to be told exactly what to do, when to do it, and how it needs to be done so that they don't have to worry if they're doing it right or not. It takes the stress and pressure off of making a mistake. They know where they stand. And so they need to be handled completely differently.
So your program is very skill-based, practically oriented, and the people leave with specific skills that they can put into place with clients and augment their income as a coach or just learn hypnosis for their own sense of well-being and effectiveness in the world. Would you say that's true?
Yes, that's definitely true. And we also do cover some of the major themes, like, in other words, when you're dealing with smoking and weight loss. We have very kind of intricate protocols that we can train. But in the basic certification, we're going to cover, here's kind of like the major themes and stumbling blocks you're going to deal with these core areas, so that you get an idea right then and there that when you're dealing with a smoker or a weight loss client or a stress client, these are the likely areas where they get stuck, and here's kind of an aerial view of what really needs to happen for them. Uh-huh. And then if they want to continue with their education, they can get in, deeper into the exact protocols, of course. But understanding those big aerial pictures and those big themes really will help equip them to start to go out and really build their own programs and really be of service to people, which is really what I'm about, is, helping people in a natural way that's very generative.
Well, Robert, I want to thank you for your rich explanations of hypnosis and what's possible and what you'll be offering in your upcoming training. And, I would recommend that anybody that's interested in building a new skill set really check this out and consider it for themselves. So thank you again, and best wishes to you.
Thanks a lot, Tim. Appreciate it.